And welcome to Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. This is part 6 of the Fabulous Freebirds. If you have not watched parts 1 through 5, it is available on YouTube. Make sure you go see it. Parts 1 through 5. Great information about the Freebirds. We don't go through their whole matches, every match they ever had, but we go through just the highlights of the matches that they had. And they pretty much, they wrestled 7 days a week most of the time. And so we don't want to go through all the matches because most of the time they wrestle the same person for a week. So, Jack, I think we should just go ahead and start this. The Fabulous Freebirds. Michael Hayes, Terry Gordy, Buddy Roberts, part 6.
Mid-South Wrestling, May the 1st, 1981, Municipal Auditorium in Shreveport, Louisiana. Dick Murdoch and the Junkyard Dog defeated Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts. Georgia Championship Wrestling, May the 2nd, 1981, Memorial Auditorium in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts, the champions, defeated Ted DiBiase and Mr. Wrestling number 2 by disqualification, retaining the NWA National Tag Team titles. And then on the 2nd, WTBS Studios in Atlanta, Georgia, Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts defeated Mike Davis and Frank Sherman. And then again on the 2nd, WTBS Studios, Ted Oates and Jerry Oates defeated Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts by disqualification. And then on the 3rd, Cobb County Civic Center in Marietta, Georgia, Ted DiBiase and Tommy Rich defeated Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts. And then on the 4th, the Bell Auditorium in Augusta, Georgia, Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts versus Ted DiBiase and Jerry Oates ended without a winner as a double disqualification.
By the way, on the Ted Oates, Jerry Oates against Terry Gordy, Buddy Roberts, tremendous match on television. Do you remember this, Rodney?
I sure do. Absolutely. Okay. That's the one Michael Hayes got on there. Said, we hate wrestling brother teams.
Jack, you remember this match?
I do.
Tremendous match, by the way. On May 9th, 1981, at the WTBS Studios in Atlanta, Georgia, Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts went against Tommy Wright. Well, they defeated Tommy Wright and Mike Stevens. On this program, Michael Hayes brings out a bounty hunter. And this time it was Nikolai Volkov. $10,000 to break Tommy Rich's arm. I do not remember Nikolai Volkov being there until I watched on YouTube that Nikolai was there. Do y'all remember Nikolai being there?
I don't remember him being there.
He was just passing through. You know, it's just a one-shot thing. He wasn't.
Well, they gave him $10,000 to break Tommy Rich's arm. Then Volkov with Michael Hayes at ringside. He went against Rocky King, but he was not called Rocky King. I can't remember what the name of it that he had. But Nikolai, I mean, he was impressive in this match. They should have brought him back. I think he could have drew money in Atlanta. March 16th, 1981, WTBS Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. Buddy Roberts and Terry Gordy defeated Roberto Soto and Tommy Wright. Great match, by the way. It is available on YouTube. All you put is Georgia Championship Wrestling, May 16th, 1981. It'll come up. Terry Gordy wins the match by pile driving Tommy Wright. And I thought he was going to break Tommy Wright's neck in this because it was not in there. And finally, Tommy really cinched it up and got underneath there. But at first, I thought, poor old Tommy's fixing to bite the dust here. All right, Rodney.
All right, we come up on May the 17th, 1981, the Omni in Atlanta. Ted DiBiase, the Junkyard Dog, defeated Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts in no time limit, no disqualification match. Match ends with Hayes using Junkyard Dog's chain on him, and then Ole.
No, the old clothesline.
And the old clothesline with the chain ploy. Back Memorial Auditorium, Chattanooga, Tennessee, on, of course, that's the afternoon, I guess, in Chattanooga on May the 17th, 1981, is Terry Gordy, Michael Hayes, and Buddy Roberts defeating the Junkyard Dog, Tommy Rich, and Robert Gibson. Municipal Auditorium, Columbus, Georgia, on May the 20th, 1981, Terry Gordy, Michael Hayes, and Buddy Roberts defeated Tommy Rich, Ted DiBiase, and Ricky Gibson. Back at Memorial Auditorium in Chattanooga on May the 23rd, 1981, Terry Gordy, Michael Hayes, and Buddy Roberts defeated Ted DiBiase, Ricky Gibson, and Tommy Rich in an elimination match.
You know, I never realized that Ricky and Robert were on the main events at this time.
And I have to say one other thing. Look, Chattanooga ran on the 17th and then back again on the 23rd. I mean, that's what, 6 days? I mean, that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Back to back like that.
I will have to tell you the reason I said the old clothesline. They did the double clothesline where JYD got clothesline with the chain. Terry Gordy was on one side, Michael Hayes on the other. And the reason I put that in there on May 23rd, 1981, the WTBS studios, Terry Gordy defeated Mike Jackson. Michael Hayes was scheduled to wrestle, but Hayes said that he hurt his neck a year ago. What he says, so he could not wrestle on TV. And remember, Gordon Soley says this during the thing. He says, "Well, Ted DiBiase hurt his neck 6 weeks, and he was back in 6 weeks, but he has been hurt for a year and can't wrestle." So, but he attacks Jackson when he was outside several times, and Gordon says, "Well, I guess his neck ain't hurting that bad." Finally, Junkyard Dog, Tommy Rich, Ted DiBiase hit the ring. This would be the same program that Bruiser Brody kicked a wrestler by the name of Johnny Howard out of the wheelchair, which would in turn get Bruiser Brody and Buck Robley fired. Not on the spot. I think it might have been a week or two later. But also, Buck Robley has a match with Tommy Rich, and he later comes back and hurts Tommy Rich's arm. Do you remember this happening on television, Rodney?
Yes.
Tremendous angle, and people were very hot at this. Okay, this was my problem with what they did there. They had already done. They were in Mid-South Wrestling, and I don't know if this could help Mid-South Wrestling business at all. Buck Robley was against the Freebirds. He comes to Atlanta and teams with them, basically, and as a $10,000 bounty guy. Do you think that could hurt business in Louisiana?
Yes.
It wasn't a very smart thought process. Jack, what do you think about that? What do you think about here's Buck Robley was going against him, was in a feud with him, but then comes to Atlanta and all at once he's I mean, do you think that was bad for business, especially for Louisiana?
Yeah, I think it would be, because I remember, going to the matches there in Columbus, Georgia, and fans were very well versed. They bought those wrestling magazines. They knew what was going on in other parts of the country. And I still remember how shocked people were when Tommy was gone, showed back up in Memphis for a bit, and was a heel up there. And yeah. I remember showing that magazine article, and people were just in shock. They just couldn't believe that, So they knew what was going on in other territories. So, yeah, I really believe that would have hurt Louisiana.
I mean, it was just crazy. Then on the 23rd of May, 1981, WTBS Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. And this comes back to what happened, and we have talked about it on shows before, where TBS would make sure things got cut off. Now, Bruiser Brody kicking Johnny Howard out of the wheelchair did not make it to television. They cut that out. Now, all you see is the guy on the ground and Bruiser Brody doing his interview. Ted DiBiase and Junkyard Dog defeated Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts by disqualification. The match was scheduled to be Jerry and Ted Oates, but DiBiase and Junkyard Dog purchased the contract from Jerry and Ted Oates. Michael Hayes hits the ring with Junkyard Dog's chain again, and they go to do the same thing they did in the Omni, but Junkyard Dog in it actually does the little thing where they cut the hole from the time he actually carried the chain in until that they cut it all out. It did not make television at all. I don't know why it was allowed to be in the Omni and wasn't allowed to be unless they had some kind of deal with their sponsor. I'm not for sure why that got cut off on television, but it did. Why do you think, Rodney, they allowed it to be done in the Omni and showed it, but did not allow it to be shown on TBS?
Difference between live and videotape. It's what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, or last when we were talking to Brian Young about why there's no real major heels anymore. And this was the difference between being done live and being done in the arena. They can videotape and pinpoint what they want to show in the videotape, whereas live, you can't do that. And that's the reason TBS decided to, I think, especially on their property, decided to say, no, we're not going to have that here on our property. And was it just, did they cut the whole thing out, or did it just go to Georgia Championship Wrestling
you could logo? No, it came in. The Michael Hayes comes in with the chain. It goes off, and it just comes back when they're running away. That was it.
But no sound in the back behind. They didn't do the sound behind it.
No, it was just cut.
Oh, okay. Because for whatever reason, I remember the Georgia Championship Wrestling logo being put up lots of times with the sound still going behind.
Here's the question I want to ask both of you. We all know that Bruiser Brody and Buck Robley end up being fired not too long after this. Was this just an excuse to fire Buck Robley? Or was he doing things on television so often that it was that, Jim Barnett was filling these calls from TBS?
I think it was by necessity to keep TBS.
What do you think, Jack? Was it just we've got to get rid of
from what I've gathered? That was the reason they fired him. Too many complaints.
Because Bruiser Brody is brought back. They bring him back. George Scott brings him back, and he starts to feud with Blackjack Mulligan. So even though they got rid of him, they do bring him back. But Buck Robley, to my knowledge, never returns back to Georgia.
Well, honestly, anything hot on TBS, and I'm almost sure that the stool on the back of Wrestling 2 that Pac Song did, I'm almost sure that was freeze framed. Do not believe it was shown. I believe we saw the aftermath, but I do not believe we saw the actual stool hit him on the back. What we saw was the pictures from the program, which was on there, but I do not believe that showed on TBS. I believe that it went to the Georgia Championship Wrestling logo, and we only heard it. We didn't, and Gordon doing the commentary behind it, which was typical for that show.
All right, Jack, let's go to these two other matches, and then we'll talk a little bit more about Gordy and Roberts.
May the 24th, 1981, Ohio Expo Center in Columbus, Ohio. Ted DiBiase and Austin Idol defeated Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts. And then on the 25th at the Veterans Memorial Fieldhouse in Huntington, West Virginia, Ted DiBiase and Mr. Wrestling number 2 defeated Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts.
And that match, by the way, went almost 43 minutes. 43 minutes in Huntington, West Virginia. On the May the 30th, 1981, WTBS Studios in Atlanta, Georgia, Bruce Reed, I think this was the second time he came back to Atlanta. It may have been his first, but he was with Bobby Garrett. He defeated Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts to disqualification. By the way, they make Bruce Reed look like $1 million. For those of you who don't know, that is Hacksaw Butch Reed as well. Do y'all remember this match and how well the Freebirds put Bruce Reed over?
I sure do, because at school on Monday, everybody was talking about Bruce Reed putting it to the Freebirds on television. So it got exactly what they were wanting out of it, for sure.
Jack, when you look at Bruce Reed, was this Terry Gordy, Buddy Roberts, Michael Hayes knowing how to get someone over?
Oh, that's exactly what it was. But you also got to remember that guy was good. I mean, right from the get-go, we all knew he was going to go somewhere.
Just tremendous, though, the way they put him over. I mean, they put him over. It goes to show what we've talked about on here. It is about you putting the other guy over. That's how you get over. And they just showed how to get Bruce Reed over. And then on the 30th of May, 1981, WTBS Studios, Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts defeats Larry Brock. And yes, the Larry Brock from Dothan, Alabama. I'm pretty sure it was him and Rick Stevens in this match. I thought that was very interesting. Okay, Ron.
All right, so now we go to the Omni in Atlanta on May the 31st, 1981. It is for the World Tag Team Championship. Ole and Gene Anderson defeated Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts inside the steel cage. I don't recall it being a cage match, but I do remember the match because this is what Bill Watts was wanting to put together from way back when the Freebirds' first appearance. He thought Ole and Gene against the Freebirds would draw. Then we go to June the 3rd, 1981, Municipal Auditorium, Columbus, Georgia. Ted DiBiase defeats Michael Hayes in a cage match. Back at Municipal Auditorium, same night on the 3rd, 1981, it's Robert and Ricky Gibson defeating Buddy Roberts and Jacques Goulet. back at the Bell Auditorium on June the 8th, 1981, Augusta, Georgia. Tommy Rich defeats Buddy Roberts. Freedom Hall Civic Center, Johnson City, Tennessee, on June the 9th, 1981. It's Johnny Weavers and Ron Ritchie defeating Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy. Municipal Auditorium, Columbus, Georgia, on June the 10th, 1981. Ted DiBiase and Tommy Rich defeats Michael Hayes and Buddy Roberts in a loser leave town match. Cobb County Civic Center, Marietta, Georgia, on June the 11th, 1981. Ted DiBiase and Steve-O defeat Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts for the National Tag Team Championships, which I don't believe are National Tag Team Championships. I still think they're Georgia Tag Team Championships at that time. Then we go back to Memorial Auditorium, Chattanooga, Tennessee, on June the 13th, 1981. Terry Gordy defeats Ted Oates. Bell Auditorium on June the 15th, 1981. Dusty Rose defeats Terry Gordy by disqualification. Municipal Auditorium, Columbus, Georgia, on June the 17th, 1981. Ted DiBiase and Steve-O defeats Terry Gordy and Brian St. John. VFW Fairgrounds, Carrollton, Georgia, on June the 20th, 1981. It's Ted DiBiase and Steve-O defeating Terry Gordy and Brian St. John.
I wonder if people fell asleep when Brian St. John was working.
I know I did.
I just yawned when I heard his name.
We have to talk about this because it's very important to the to what was going on at the time. Somewhere around June, it could have been that somewhere in that May time, Buck Robley is fired. He is going. A lot of people gets mad. The Freebirds are three of the people who get mad. They give their notice. All give their notice, but Terry Gordy is talked to by the Atlanta office, and they agree to keep him. And the Buddy Roberts and Michael Hayes just go on their own little way. I remember it happened. Rodney, you remember the conversation our father had that said, well, they got mad, but they actually went to Terry Gordy and wanted him to stay? Yes,
I sure do. And the thing about it is that for whatever reason, they put him right back in a tag match. I never could quite understand that when Terry should have been in a single. But however, that's what they did. It just seemed not to work without Michael. I'm not sure why, but Terry with Jimmy Snuka just seemed not to work.
What do you think, Jack? Did Jimmy Snuka, Terry Gordy, was that a good fit?
No, it was not a good fit. Which is unusual because usually Terry could go with anybody, and carry a tag team. But that was just not a fit that I ever bought into.
Honestly, if they would have put Terry in a single, going after the Georgia championship, going after the national championship, put him and Tim and Tommy Rich in the main event, or Ted DiBiase, that would have been huge. I think it would have really worked.
A lot of people say that the Freebirds quit. No, they did not quit. They actually did give their notice. They did not quit. Now that's the one thing that I think has been said that they actually quit, but they did not quit. They actually gave their notice, and Terry Gordy was asked to stay. Michael Hayes, Buddy Roberts were not. Here was the thing: Ole Anderson was in between this. Ole Anderson was actually booking in the Carolinas, but also came back to Atlanta to be the booker. And I remember Ole Anderson saying, "Well, why do we care if Michael Hayes is coming?" I just remember that happening, and Dad saying that. And I think Buddy Roberts just got mad because they got rid of, and I think he just went to work because he almost just disappears. I don't know where he went to work during that time, but on June the 20th, 1981, Terry Gordy comes out and he says these words: "I am no longer a Freebird." And then later on comes out with Jimmy Snuka, and they have their first match on television. Terry Gordy and Jimmy Snuka defeat Tommy Wright. Tommy Wright gets beat up by Terry Gordy many times on this show. And a guy named Rocky Sorter. Snuka comes off the top rope and then does a call. Did y'all really understand why he did the thing off the top rope and then did the claw? Did that make sense to y'all?
Yeah.
I mean, shouldn't it just been the top rope thing and that should have been the way he won the match? Rodney, what do you think about that?
He was wanting to try the mandible claw out, kind of thing.
Is that what that was? The mandible claw, basically?
Yes.
Similar to that?
Yes.
I mean, he didn't go through the...
No, not mankind mandible claw, but it was still a mandible claw. And I think that's what Gordon called it, the mandible claw.
Just didn't work for me.
It didn't fit. It certainly didn't fit.
By the way, people were cheering for Terry Gordy during the match.
Well, yes, they were. And again, it was a situation where Snuka should not have been in the position he would. He would have probably been better off against Terry Gordy, because Snuka was so impressive, great shape, does the dive off the top rope. I just don't see him in any way other than.
By the way, when in between, Ole comes back just for a while, and the man that comes to book is George Scott. He is the next booker in Georgia Championship Wrestling. All right, Jack?
June the 21st, 1981, the Omni in Atlanta, Terry Gordy and Brian St. John defeated Robert Gibson and Ricky Gibson. And then on the 22nd, Bell Auditorium, Augusta, Georgia, Terry Gordy and Ken Patera defeated Ted DiBiase and Steve O. And then on the 24th, Municipal Auditorium, Columbus, Georgia, Ted DiBiase versus Terry Gordy ended without a winner in a double countout. And then on the 25th, Cobb County Civic Center in Marietta, Ken Patera, Jimmy Snuka, and Terry Gordy defeated Tommy Rich, Ted DiBiase, and Steve O. On the 27th, WTBS Studios in Atlanta, Terry Gordy and Jimmy Snuka defeated Abe Jacobs and Mike Fever. I'm pretty sure Mike is the one who took the pin there. On the 30th, Macon Coliseum in Macon, Georgia, Ted DiBiase and Steve-O defeated Terry Gordy and Jimmy Snuka.
You know, things start getting a little bit weird in Georgia Championship Wrestling. Michael Hayes will return on our Part 7 to Georgia. We always thought it should have been the other way around. Michael Hayes should have been the bad guy. Terry Gordy should have been the babyface, the good guy. Made no sense to us at the time. Rodney, your thoughts on Part 6 and coming up on Part 7?
Well, we both agreed with that. We thought, well, what in the world is this? Especially when Michael Hayes, it turned out okay. It turned out okay, but I think that Terry got lost yet again being the tag team. He should have been in a single. Definitely could have been a good Georgia champion, national TV champion. And to stick him back in the tag team, I think that really defeated the purpose of having him, because he was so good. He was so good, and he could have been great single wrestler as well.
Jack, your thoughts of coming up on Part 7, where Michael Hayes becomes the good guy.
Well, just expounding on that, Terry had an appeal to fans even back then in the height of the kayfabe era. Fans reacted to him better. He was just a big old Southern boy, and everybody connected him. And no matter what bad he did, they still respected him. And you're right, Terry would have been an outstanding singles competitor, whereas Michael Hayes excelled with tag teams or on the outside running his mouth. And no disrespect for Michael, we're all good at something, and tag team is just where his forte was. So they messed the boat with how they handled that.
But now remember, they were not going to. Ole Anderson did not want Michael Hayes. He never thought Michael Hayes was a great wrestler, and we won't say what he used to say about Michael Hayes. But you probably know, if you watched the interview with Ole Anderson, a shoot interview with Ole Anderson, you know exactly what he says about everybody. That's what he used to say about Michael Hayes. I didn't think Michael Hayes was ever as bad as people said he was.
No, he was not.
I thought Michael was pretty good. Was he as good as Terry? No, but there wasn't hardly anybody as good as Terry.
No, even Buddy Roberts wasn't as good as Terry, and that what. And Buddy was a great wrestler. He was the glue that held that thing together, so to speak. And it was a crazy time in Atlanta. It went through a lot of bookers in a very short period of time. And George Scott.
My favorite was Ken Patera was doing the feats of strength with the cinder block on his head, and he took this, and Snuka took the sledgehammer and busted over his head. And Gordon was saying, "Don't, ladies and gentlemen, these are professionals. Don't try this at home." He said, "Yeah, they need to try this." This is Terry now. Terry's on there. "Yeah, Gordon, they need to try this at home, but they don't need to put it on their head. Let them knock some sense into them right there." It was great. No, we don't do that. Because it was off his chest, right? He was busting on the chest. They need to try it on their head, knock a little sense into them.
All right, folks, we're going to see what the insiders have got to say. But the Fabulous Freebirds, Part 6. Be looking for Part 7. Again, Terry Gordy against Michael Hayes. Some very, very good stuff is yet to come between these two. Great matches, by the way. Terry Gordy, Michael Hayes have great matches together, even in tag teams and all that. So it's tremendous. So let's see what people have got to say. Rick Brooks is with us. Michael Barr is with us as well. Charles Bellflower. This is from our live show. If you didn't watch it, September 6th, 2021, you can go to see our live show, The Wrestling Conversation. And he was saying Leon Ogle wrestled and was the son-in-law of Fred Ward. I'll tell you what, he had a lot of son-in-laws, didn't he? Fred Ward did. Yes, he did. How many kids he have? Because somebody got fired because they said something bad about one of Fred Ward's kids. I can't remember that well. I think it might have been Bill Watts. Bill Watts got fired for that. Let's see. Tremendous. Michael Barr said tremendous matches back then. Terry Gordy, Michael Hayes, two of the best. Charles also said that Nikolai Volkov teamed with Brute Bernard in 1975. Nikolai Volkov at one time, I think even maybe during this one, actually had hair during this match. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think he did.
It seems to me, and Charles, if I'm not correct, I believe that Volkov and Bernard were both part of Hart's Army at the time, managed by Gary Hart, and I think Nikolai Volkov was also the Georgia champion for a little while there too.
Brent, that match with Buck Robley was not a good match. It hurt the Louisiana territory at the time. I will tell you, Buck Robley, very smart man when it came to booking. I thought he had great television shows. I thought he did the live shows were very good. They were very entertaining. He just, for some reason, just would not listen to Jim Barnett when he told him, don't do that on television. I think the more he told him don't do it, he did it anyway.
And the thing about it is that was the way Georgia was done. A lot of the stuff was done in the arenas. They brought it back. Sometimes it was filmed in color. They would make it black and white. They would put dots over things just to get it past the censors there at TBS. And it was the most highly censored TV show, wrestling show going at the time.
Michael Barr asked the question, how many territories how did territories find television stations, CBS, ABC, BNC, to carry television wrestling on their channel? You would go pitch it. You would go pitch.
Yeah, you're not talking about the main networks themselves. You're talking about the local affiliates of these. And yeah, where Birmingham, for example, has all three. So you just go and we talk to them and see which one was interested, which one you got the best deal with, and that's where you stuck it.
And it was important that not only were they having a live TV program there, but they had live events there as well. Yep. So it went hand in hand. And normally in those cases, they were either number one or number two in the markets for local shows.
Yeah, and television stations really come out ahead because wrestling was a very low expense for them, almost nothing. I mean, really, we just supplied tapes. So, it was a win-win situation. That was another whole show we could do about how the DuPont network, started in the 50s of carrying live professional wrestling on Saturday nights, which was the resurgence of the popularity of professional wrestling nationwide. So television and wrestling have always had a good working relationship.
And by the way, Jim Barnett, the man that owns Georgia Championship Wrestling, we're talking about right now with the Fabulous Freebirds, he was one of the people who came up with the idea of putting wrestling in the studios. That was his brainchild back in the 50s. So Jim Barnett was around for many years. Buck Robley did not carry over too well in Dothan, Alabama. Did he? I didn't even know he wrestled there. I guarantee you wasn't there long. Jack, how many wrestlers did you help get over during your time in wrestling?
All of them, even the ones I stretched.
Michael Barr said some very classic matches, real classic matches in Columbus, Georgia.
Yes.
Great wrestling facility, too. Wasn't as good as the Atlanta City Auditorium or Augusta's Bell Auditorium, but they're still a great location for wrestling.
The kind when that bell rang, the enthusiasm of that crowd in Columbus was unbelievable.
Yeah, that was my first taste of big time wrestling. I'd been to independent shows or outlaw, a lot of times, part of the shows too. But Columbus was the first big arena with the first big time show, and it was magic to me. And I thought it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen until I went to the Atlanta City Auditorium the first time, about 6 months after I moved to Columbus. And it was just an atmosphere unlike anything else I have ever seen. If you could put magic in a bottle and sell it to professional wrestling fans, you would bottle it at the Atlanta City Auditorium.
Yes, that was such a great facility. And Augustus Bell Auditorium was almost the same exact kind of building, just tremendous. That atmosphere. Now sometimes they allowed smoking in some of them arenas, so it was a little smoky.
Well, sure. that was part of the appeal for the Atlanta City. And I've never been a cigarette smoker, and actually at the time I was going, I hadn't even started smoking cigars at the time, but it added to that atmosphere there in such a way that it'll never be duplicated. I don't care how many lights and pyro and all that everybody does now. Nothing beats that light over the ring and that smoky arena and thousands of people losing their minds.
And sometimes there at the Bell Auditorium or the Atlanta City Auditorium, they would actually pay the extra $25 and we get a spotlight. So that was always the but now I get remember.
And you could often go home with your own free pet rat.
Let's see. Michael Barr said, how many years did the Freebirds gimmick go on and when did it play out? Well, they started in 1978, I believe. And I think it was going on until 1998, wasn't it? I mean, or 1992 or 3.
It was Doc. Yeah, they were there pretty much till the end of WCW.
Yeah. So and I always enjoy. Michael Hayes. He was at the time was taking care of all the music for a while when we were doing the. And we always gave Michael Hayes a hard time. Always. Sure did. Always. There was never a time.
I don't remember what year that Michael left. I guess it was in the 90s that Michael went to WWF as what was that? Doc Hendricks.
Hendricks. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had him cut his hair.
Yeah. And he's as far as I know, I don't think he's ever not had a job there. And very ingrained in the political system up there.
They didn't have a TV title at the time. It was 2 years later before they brought it back to I'm guessing on Georgia Championship Wrestling. I know they brought. I know Bobby Eaton was a TV champion at some point. I believe that would have been in 1980 though. So Michael released an album called Backstreet something. Yeah, it was Bad Street USA, and it wasn't released. It escaped. It did not. That was a Jim Cornette. That's what he said every time.
I remember pictures because they were in Texas at the time when it came out, and I remember they had a big release party, and they were all wearing tuxes, and there's Terry Gordy in a full tux with no shirt. He's got the tux jacket on, and his eyes are just wild. And I remember showing him that picture and asking him. I said, Terry, what was going on that night? He said, I wasn't part of that. And I said, wait, your picture's right there. And he said, no, you're not hearing me. I said, I was there, but I wasn't there.
It was funny because at this time that we're talking about the Freebirds, they were not from Bad Street, USA yet. They were I think they said from coast to coast. I believe how they said they were from, but I think it might have been from the toast from the coast to coast or something. It was always crazy.
Coast to the coast or something like that.
It was always crazy. I never understood. I think Steve it wasn't Steve Allen. What was his name that did the ring announcing there for a while? Curly-headed guy, Georgia Steve something. Maybe it was Ron Allen. Maybe Ron Allen was his name. I can't remember his name. I'll have to go back and look at it. But he always messed that up, I thought, on television. I don't even know if he knew.
He had no business doing ring announcing.
I did not say nothing bad about you. If you're still living, I didn't say.
He had no business doing ring announcing. I'll say it again. He had no business doing ring announcing.
When Patera blew up the hot water balloon, he hit him in the face, and his eyes were glassed. And he does it. Now, this is what happens. Gordon Soley asked them to go, and he says, you did this on television maybe a few weeks ago. He brings out a box, and the box has not been opened. And he says, I was thinking maybe you could try this again, but with a box that's not been opened. He says, wait a minute, Gordon, now what are you trying to do to me? He says, no, I've not got my goggles. I don't have nothing on. She says, well, I just thought maybe you did it. And we wanted to show the people that this is coming. And he opens up the thing and he throws it. He said, you can have all that. You can have this. Nobody wants that, which was the I guess used for enemy. And he said, now listen, he said, I don't need that. And he starts to blood, and Tommy Rich comes out during this thing, right? And he says, and Tommy Rich tells him, so, well, Kim Patera, you know what I found out is exactly what I've been telling you for weeks. You're just full of hot air. That's what's wrong. It was just tremendous stuff. They got into it. It was good. But I can't believe, though, they did the thing. And he says, well, what? And he did blow this thing up huge before it would have busted. But Kim Patera. Volkov. Dan Lang. Volkov was in the AWA as Boris what?
Baryshnikov. Yeah, I got to see that.
Michael Barr said, great conversation tonight. Thanks, Jack, Brent, Rodney. Some really good research and wrestling atmosphere here. It took me a long time to do these, part 6 and 7. It took me a long time to come up with that because I watched all the stuff as well. I went back and watched all the Freebird stuff, and I enjoyed every minute of it. Were you guys in Georgia when Ric Flair broke Bobby John? Right? Yes, we were. Yes, we were there. We were actually in the building. We were at the studio when he broke Bobby Garrett's arm.
Yeah, that's just a total accident. His arm got up underneath him, and you can still see that. That's still on YouTube.
And by the way, Ric Flair was very upset about that. Very upset. He stayed in the ring with the guy. He was very upset with him. I think he actually even went to the hospital with Bobby Garrett. He felt really bad about it. And so it just shows you what kind of person Ric Flair was. He just didn't just leave the ring and say, well, he's hurt. So he actually spent some time with him. Just watching the fans in some of those places and watching them go, wow, it was awesome. Yeah, it was great. Charles asked the question, what stipulations made the TV title different than the Georgia? I don't know that it did it?
It didn't. In the beginning, it was you had it for 6 weeks, and after no losses, you gave it up, and then it went back to tournament. But they just cut that out, and then there was no difference between the two.
Well, Michael Barr said he had no business doing the ring announcers as well.
He was awful.
And then Michael Barr, we'll go one more question, and we'll get.
However, he thought he was good.
Yes, a television champion could not take his belt to a Saturday night or an event as that in Columbus. I hated when they had TV title matches in the arenas.
That made no sense.
This is not TV. How are you having the
But thing? It started way back. Thunderbolt. I mean, let's be honest, one of the biggest houses ever at the Omni, Georgia TV title versus the $1,000 silver dollars between Thunderbolt and Ole. I mean, they were doing it as far back as then.
All right, Rodney, what we talked about on part 6, the Fabulous Freebirds, your final comments on that time period.
Well, the beginning starts okay. At the end, it was just scrambled eggs, basically. Terry was trying to find himself. Michael gone. I think that they used him in the wrong way by sticking him in a tag match. He should have been a single. He would have been awesome, like I said, in the singles. But I think the reason they was wanting to do that is so that when Michael came back, they could do the tag match with Michael and with Terry and Jimmy Snuka. So if I was DiBiase, I wouldn't have teamed with Michael Hayes ever. But he does. And I that's one thing I never could understand. And
if he would have turned on him, it would have killed Ted DiBiase. But Ted DiBiase leaves, by the way. I think he gets mad at Buck Robley, and I believe he actually does quit. I believe he does eventually leave as well. He got mad. He may have gave his notice. I think he did give his notice. But Jack, final comments.
It's simply this. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, great stuff. And part 7 starts out slow. Michael Hayes' interview that he does the first week he comes back on television is priceless. And we'll talk about that on part 7 of the Fabulous Freebirds. Thank you so much for being a part of this show. If you enjoyed this show, give us a big thumbs up. Subscribe to the page. That lets us know you enjoy what we're doing. And go one step further. Hit that notification bell and watch the video. The Freebirds playlist right there next to Rodney. And it'll give you part 1 through 5 and plus some extra things pushed in there as well that you can watch on the Fabulous Freebirds. I want to thank the insiders. I would like to thank Missy as well for being a part of the show as well. Thank y'all so much, and we'll see you in the next video right here on Pro Wrestling Inside Out. And we want to thank each and every one of the insiders for being a part of our show. We certainly do appreciate it, and thank you for supporting our channel. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do it by very easily going to our Facebook page, hit Become a Supporter, and it just helps us pay for mics, cameras, and everything else that we need to make this show. Thank y'all so much, and we'll see you on the next video right here on Pro Wrestling Inside